Hey there, good morning, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph, and I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Today we're doing one of the specials that I've decided to add to my channel that really doesn't have anything to do with rock. This will only be once a month for each of these three type of shows. Originally it was going to be the one on comic books today, but I decided that I wanted to do this board game first. So today it's called Game Day, and we're going to be discussing a board game and its setup and what I like and don't like about it, that kind of stuff. Actually, there isn't really anything about it I don't like. It's just mostly the things that I do like, and that's what I'm going to stick with. And I'll go over the pieces and how the game plays and how the setup, and show you a setup of the game. So the game I've chosen to do today is the game called Stratego. It's a two-player game, similar to chess in a lot of ways. It's a strategy game in which one opposing army faces another opposing army. And the object of the game is to do one of two things: either capture the other team's flag, or take all the other team's pieces so that they cannot move on their turn and therefore forfeit the game. I don't believe this game can end in a tie. I've not seen that happen, but I suppose if the last two pieces, the movable pieces, are the same rank and they take each other, then I guess it could end up in a stalemate. But I've not seen that ever happen, so, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I've never seen it myself personally. I've been playing this game since I was about 8, so for 50 years I've been playing this game. I used to play tournaments with a couple friends of mine when we were kids. I wasn't particularly great at it. I taught my daughter this game as well, and when she was 8 years old, I used to let her kind of get a feel for the game and that. And when she was 8 years old, she came up with a brilliant strategy and beat me. So that shows my level of this game, but it also shows her level too, was quite sophisticated for an 8-year-old. So anyways, we're going to be talking about, like I said, Stratego. Excellent board game, a simple game that two people can play, a good game for children. Teaches them strategy, teaches them how to gauge different things and about how battle works and that kind of thing. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by, I've already explained the premise of the game, which is to capture the other team's flag or eliminate all of his players. That's how you win the game. And now I'm just going to go over their pieces, and it's similar to chess. It has a number of pieces that have specific abilities and specific, in this case, specific ranks as well. In chess, there are also ranks. I'm going to refer back and forth between this game and chess because there's a lot of similarities between the two games. In the game of chess, as you know, the object is to capture the other team's king or eliminate all the other team's players, which is pretty much capture the king, right? The only difference between this game and that one is that in that game, whoever attacks first wins. Where in this game, if two equal ranking position players attack each other, they're both eliminated. So that's the major difference, I think, between the two. This game has one board, two opposing colors, as you know. In the case of Stratego, the colors are blue and red for this particular set. Now, I've heard that there is a black and white set, and that there's also a set with a green color in it. So I don't know about that, though. I haven't seen those, so I can't really comment too much about them. So I'm going to give you a rundown now of each of the pieces and its ability and its importance to the game and how it works into the strategy. Okay, so the first piece we're going to talk about is the most important piece in the game. It's called the flag. I'm going to get up as close as I can so you can see it. So the flag, The flag basically is the symbol of the team's strength. If captured, they lose. That's simple as that. So it's in essence, it's the most important piece. It has no mobility at all. It doesn't move. Once placed on the board, it has to stay in the spot that it's in. It has no ability to beat another piece on the board at all. There's at least one other piece on the board that is like it, immobile, so they'll never come into contact with each other. There's only one flag, so once it's captured, the game is over for the team for both teams actually. The team that captures the flag, in this case I have the blue flag, so if the red team captures the blue flag, they win. If the blue team, in this case the one I'm displaying here, captures the red flag, the game is also over, and the victor is the blue team at that point. So that's the specific point of the flag, and there are strategies in how to place the flag to best keep it from being captured. Some people like to use some of the other pieces to surround it. Some people leave it in the open and use distractions. This was a technique that my daughter used to beat me. The one time she beat me like severely. She did beat me before too, but this one just took me by surprise. Okay, so the next piece up, I'm going to go in order of rank. In case I didn't make that clear, I started with the flag because it's the most important piece, but now we go in the order of ranking. So we have a piece, this piece is called the Marshal. If you can see it, it has the typical Marshal helmet and the X beside it to denote that it is a rank of Marshal. Okay, the Marshal is the strongest and the commander of the forces on this particular board. So the Marshal can take any other piece with the exception of the bomb. He cannot take a bomb, that will blow him up. And we'll get into the strengths of each and weaknesses of each as well. So the Marshal can take any piece as long as he attacks first. He has his Achilles heel in this game. That is a piece called the Spy, which I will talk about later. And I'm not going to get into the Spy right now. I will talk about the Spy when we get to it. So the Marshal can take any of the other pieces. As long as they're mobile, he can take them. And he can take the flag as well if he happens to be the one there to capture the flag. You know, it can happen. I don't see that too often though. Usually the Marshal is reserved to basically taking out movable pieces and trying not to get captured by the Spy, that is. So he does have the one Achilles heel, which is a Spy. He can move one place at a time, either horizontal or vertical. Horizontal or vertical. No vertical movements in this game. That's chess, sorry. So he can move backward, forward, sideways, either left or right, one space at a time on his turn. So I don't think I forgot anything about the Marshal, other than he is the ranking soldier on the board. Okay, so the next piece up is the General. Yes, the General is outranked by the Marshal. This game, I'm almost sure, was developed by the French because they always have the Marshals ahead of the Generals. This is not a US born game, sorry. So I'm going to get up close with him so you can see. Oh, wait a minute. Is this the... Yeah, this is him. He has, as you see, 4 stars on his upper right corner in front of his helmet, denoting him as the General. Now the Marshal, I forgot to mention, now it comes to mind, there's like the flag, there's only one of each of those 2 pieces on the board. Marshal has only one, flag has only one, General has only one as well. The General is probably the first recognizable officer, of course, of this game to North American people. Most of them don't recognize the Marshal as the in Europe, the Marshal always outranks the General, but here we don't have Marshals, we have Generals of different stars. In this case, he's a 4-star. Anyways, the General, basically the same as the Marshal in several aspects. He moves one piece, one space at a time. He can take any of the pieces of lesser rank than him. His Achilles heel is he cannot take the Marshal, for one thing. He cannot take a bomb. same as the marshal, but there's no other pieces on the board that are a threat to him other than the marshal and the bombs that can kill him. Everybody else is subject to his ranking abilities. So considered the second most powerful piece on the board, and can move left, right, front, back, one space at a time. So there we have it, a marshal, and there's only one piece on the board. If I forgot to mention that, I think I didn't, but I might have. Okay, the next piece up, the third ranking officer, and all these have been officers thus far, is the colonel. You know, look at the colonel. He has 3 stars, denoting him as the colonel. The other thing you can note about the colonel is that he faces forward, whereas both the general and the marshal face kind of sideways. The marshal facing to the left when you're looking at him, and the colonel and the general facing to the right. He has the same abilities to move forward, backward, sideways, left or right, and can move only one space at a time as well. The big significant difference here is he is the first piece with more than one of him. There are 2 colonels on the board for each team. So whatever I say about the blue team also applies to the red team, just so I'm clear about that. Also with the colonel, he can beat every other piece on the board with the exception, again, of the bomb or the marshal or the general, because they both outrank him. If he comes in contact, this is something I haven't mentioned before because I don't know, I just didn't get to it yet, is that all pieces of equal value cancel each other out. So in the case of the marshal, if he attacks the other marshal, they're both gone. Same with the general. If one attacks the other, they're both gone. Same with the colonel. If he attacks another colonel, they're both gone. This is a specific type of rule of Stratego that doesn't happen with chess. In chess, the first piece to attack, I think, wins, unless I'm wrong. Can the queen take a queen? I think it's whoever attacks first. If I'm not sure about that, so if for some reason I haven't played chess for a very long time, so I may have gotten this wrong. So if I did, please let me know. Anyways, we're not here to talk about chess. In the case of Stratego, this is the case. So there are 2 of these pieces on the board. So that's the front row. Those are the senior officers and the flag for the game of Stratego. Now we're going to go into the secondary officers and first non-commissioned officer. So the first officer of this rank, or what I would call medium rank officers, is this one. It's called the major. Now if you notice that the major faces to the left, the same as the marshal. So his job, and you'll also notice that he has 1 star, denoting him as a major, so that there's no confusion, because he does have some similarities to some of the other officers that confuse people. So, but basically the 1 star denotes him as a major. So with the major, pretty much the same thing applies here. He can move forward, backward, left, right, 1 space at a time. He will lose in the confrontation with either the marshal, the general, or the colonel, who all outrank him. And he will, if he comes in contact with another major, they cancel each other out and they're both removed from the board. In the case of the major too, there are, I believe there's 3 of them. I think there's 3. In fact, I'm sure there is. There's 3 majors, so there's more opportunity for cancellation, of course. So 3 majors, and they are to me, they're the first officer of the medium-ranked officers, or the low-ranked officers, if you prefer. So that's it for the major. The next piece up is this one. You notice he has no stars. So some people think of this is a captain, by the way. Captain has no stars. He has the hat. That's the best way to tell him. And he, of course, faces the same way as the marshal and the major. Some people like to think of the major as being the last senior officer because of the stars. You know, he has 1 star, the colonel has 3 stars, the general has 4 stars, and the marshal has the X, which denotes him as the marshal. But in the case of the captain, he has no stars of any kind. He's just but he is recognized as an officer. There are 4 captains on the board. Movement is the same as the rest: front, back, left, right, and has the ability to beat all lower ranking officers and commissioned officers and non-commissioned officers. He, of course, cannot take the ones that I've mentioned before. The major outranks him, the colonel, the general, and the marshal all outrank him, so he cannot beat any of those. And if he comes in contact with another captain, they cancel each other out, same as all ranking officers, as all pieces on the board. Okay, the next piece up is the last of the officers. The last officer piece. Also, as you see, no stars. In this case, he faces forward. That's how you're going to denote him from the captain, because both pieces have no stars on them, but he faces forward and the captain faces to the left, the same as the marshal and the major. Okay, so he is the last of the officer, a lieutenant. That's what he is. This is a lieutenant. And of course, the red pieces have the exact same picture, except for it's red, of course. In the case of the lieutenant, there are 4 of them in the game. They have the same movement as all the other previous pieces: 1 space forward, 1 space back, left or right. The lieutenant cannot take any of the previous officers, so he will lose in a battle with captains, majors, colonels, generals, and marshals. He can take all the non-commissioned officers and any smaller piece below him. And so therefore he is the last, of course, of the officers as well. Is there anything else I can say about him? No, I think that's it. Now we move out of officer territory with the first non-commissioned officer. He faces to the left, the same as the marshal, the captain, the major, and so he faces to the left. Same type of movement. Of course, we're talking about, get a good picture of him. This is the sergeant. The sergeant, I guess, is best denoted because he has some similarities to the captain. He's got that fairly high helmet, but the biggest difference is he has the big, huge mustache. The captain also has a top hat, which is not really what this is, but they look very similar, so just keep that in mind. The sergeant also has 4 pieces on the board, so basically the sergeant cannot take a single officer. He can't take the lieutenant, the captain, the major, the colonel, the general, or the marshal. If he comes in contact with another sergeant, it's the same thing. He's eliminated. But he can take all the lesser ranked non-commissioned officers and non-officers. Of course, like all the other pieces, he has no power over the bomb. The bomb will blow him up. But the bombs don't move, so unless he attacks, if he attacks a non-moving piece, he takes that chance. Sometimes if they run out of lesser pieces, they will use sergeants to determine stuff in strategies. For me, I tend to use sergeant for different type of things altogether. So then we have 4 pieces. Again, same thing. Can move forward, backwards, left, or right, 1 space at a time. So far, all the pieces are like that. There are some that don't do that, so I will get into them next. So there you have it, the medium ranked or lesser ranked officers and non-commissioned officers. So we have 4 pieces left to discuss: 2 officers, the bomb, and a specific special piece, which I will talk about when we get to it. Okay, so the next piece up is called a minor. The miner, of course, faces to the left, which is a common train in here. He has the helmet on versus a hat. All the other officers have hats on, except for the major, who has kind of a helmet. So anyways, he has no stars, of course, because he's not an officer, or not a high-ranking one anyways. He's a miner. Miners, to me, have a specific job here. But before we get to that, he also moves in the same manner as all the other pieces. He can move forward, backward, sideways, left or right, one space at a time. Basically, the miner, and this is the first piece that has more than 4 pieces. There are 5 miners in the game. The miner's job is to take the bomb. So that's what he does. If he encounters a bomb, he takes it. It's his specific duty, if you prefer. But he's outranked by sergeants, lieutenants, captains, majors, colonels, generals, and the marshal. If he encounters any of those pieces, he'll lose. If they attack him, he gets killed. Same thing. So he's not a particularly powerful piece. He can take 2 pieces or 3 pieces that are below him on the board. So he's not entirely weak, but not considered a piece you use for attacking. He's a piece specific to his job, which is to take the bomb. So the next piece up is called the Scout. Now, if you look at this, he has kind of a Russian hat on, and the difference between him is he's kind of facing more to the right, or actually to the left. Is he to the left as well? Yeah, he is to the left. Sorry, my bad, my mistake. So the Scout has several abilities that the others do not have. First of all, there's 8 of them. So they outnumber all the other pieces on the board. There's more Scouts than any other piece in the game, making up 20% of the army. So if you were to think of this as an army, they would be considered like the privates. Maybe the miners might be considered corporals, but for the game they're called a Scout. So the Scout has a couple of abilities. He has one specific ability that exceeds all the other pieces. He can move as many spaces as he wishes in one direction. So he also can move forward, backward, left, or right, but he can go as many positions as he wants. As long as there's no object in his way, he can move that distance. So if he wants to travel from one end of the board to the other, he can do that in one move. It's his ability. However, he is the weakest ranking officer or army officer. There is one other piece that's weaker than, well, and of course the flag. All pieces can take the flag, and he is capable of taking the flag as well. But when it comes to confrontations with any other pieces, miners, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, majors, colonels, generals, and the marshal, he loses those confrontations every time. And if he comes in contact with another Scout, which is quite frequent, usually Scouts are used in a manner that makes them confront each other. They cancel each other out and are both removed from the board. So his specific duty here, as you can see, is this, as what he is, a Scout. He scouts ahead to see what they're facing. What's on that front line that I need to be wary of? That's his job. Or there might be a piece that's coming and people are not sure what to do about it. So you send the Scout to find out what the piece is. That's his duty. Anything else about the Scout that I need to mention? Yeah, only that he can take. He built his ability is only to take the spy, which is the next piece I will talk about, and the flag. Those are his only 2 pieces on the board he can take. So, out of 40 pieces, he can take 2. Not a particularly powerful piece, but a very useful tool. And hence, that's why there's so many of them. Okay, the next piece up is called the spy. As you can see, he has a top hat here, again facing to the left. The actual only piece on the board that faces to the right is the general. All the other pieces either face to the left or face forward. So the spy, of course, has no rank as far as the military goes. He is considered he has one specific job, But before we get to the job, he can move in the same manner as all the other pieces. Front, back, sideways, left to right, at one space at a time. His specific job is to capture the marshal. And this is the only time on the board where the piece attacking doesn't win by its rank. It wins by its attacking mode. So if the marshal attacks him first, the marshal wins, and he's captured and gone off the board. If he attacks first, the marshal loses. So there's a specific strategies in how to get this to happen. So, but that is the only piece on the board he can take, except for the flag. But all pieces can take the flag. He can only take the marshal, and only if he attacks first. Not a very particularly powerful position. However, could have if he takes the marshal first, it leaves the game wide open for the other team, because they now lose their most powerful piece. So there's the spy. That's his particular duty. Okay, the last piece on the board is like the first piece on the board, immobile, cannot move. This piece is called the bomb, and pretty easy to figure out that that's the bomb because it has a bomb-like signature to it. It's the only the flag is also, so there's two non-living or non-representative of living pieces on the board, and the bomb is one of them. The bomb's job is to sit in one spot. It cannot move in any direction, does not move at all. If attacked by any of the other pieces on the board, it will blow them up and kill them. The only thing about the bomb is once it blows them up, well, actually, the bomb stays in the spot. So once it blows them up, they cannot. It becomes known that that's what it is. So people will pretty much stay with. So pretty much only has a chance to blow up one person. Usually it's a scout who's checking out to see what it is, but sometimes it happens where people don't think there's a bomb there and they get a player that's a little bit higher blown up. Or they forget that the bomb's there and they blow up again. So it's very important to keep track of where their other team's bombs are because they don't move. So the bomb, I forgot to mention that there's only one spy too. I just completely forgot that, so I'm just mentioning it now. So with the bombs, there are 6 of them. They're placed around the border in defensive positions or distraction positions, but we'll get into that after we discuss the pieces. So 6 of these. Is it the weakest piece on the board? Not necessarily. It's the most. It can't move, so it can't do anything to defend itself. But the miner is the only piece on the board that can take it, can remove it from the board. So if the opposing team's miner takes it, it's gone. But the rest of them can't touch it. But it can't attack them anyways. They could stand right next to it and there's nothing it can do. So there you go. That's the 12 pieces of Stratego. Now, strategies. The main strategy for most teams is to defend the flag while attempting to capture the other team's flag. However, if it gets to a situation where it's become apparent that for instance, if all the miners are gone on both teams and it is determined that the flag is behind a wall of bombs that can't be penetrated, then the next strategy is to try to wipe out all the other team's players. So once they have no more immobile players, they can't make a move on their turn, they have to forfeit the game. So those are the 2 ways in which you can win. So that's the flag's purpose. The marshal, the marshal's job is to do the same thing as all the other officers and basically capture as many lower ranking position players as they can. The marshal has to also be concerned with the spy. So he does not want the spy to get him, so he wants to capture that spy first, or somehow somebody eliminate the spy. The spy cannot beat any other piece on the board, so it has to be very careful. General, colonel, major, captain, all pretty much soldiers in the army fighting against the weaker opponents if they can. Lieutenants and The sergeants, because of their weaker nature, I tend to place them near or around bombs in case a miner gets through one of the bombs. Then they can eliminate him so that he can't go further and possibly capture the flag. I generally lose those two because of the weaker characters, and there's enough of them to do the guard duty, I call it. Miners, of course, they're going to move forward and try to capture bombs wherever the team feels that the flag could possibly be positioned. So I normally assign an officer to them to guard them while they move up the board. I tend to use the captains or majors for this particular duty. They're strong enough pieces to ward off any of the weaker pieces, which are more numerous, from attacking the miner and taking him before he gets to his objective. So that's generally his job. The scout, of course, is self-explanatory, and we've already pretty much decided. I tend to try to place my scouts closer to the front so that I can figure out the guy's configuration quicker. If there's a particular piece that's not moving and I see it, and we're in a position where a flag might be hidden, I will use the scout to determine if it's a bomb or not. Unfortunately for the scout, it's a suicide mission. And then, of course, the spy, I always assign an officer to the spy, usually one of the colonels. Sometimes it will be the general, but usually one of the colonels. I usually like to have the general out in the open to attack wherever he can. So usually we use one of the colonels to protect the spy, but generally move the spy about in a position where the marshal may come by and I can attack. That's what I like to do. There are other strategies, I'm just telling you mine. And then, of course, the bombs I will place either as defense against getting the flag or as decoys. So I may use a couple in one corner or several of them around in a central piece, and then use the rest as decoys to lure the attacker away, thinking that my flag is somewhere else. That's how I like to work. So there you go. You have all the pieces, their movements, and how the ranking system works, and how the pieces are what the importance are, the pieces of the game, and my particular strategies with each of the pieces. And so I'm just going to this next bit will be a little bit discombobulation, as I have to turn the computer around to show you what the setup is. But before I do that, I'm going to put the rest of the pieces I've taken as pieces for explanation off the board, and I'm going to put them back on the board so you get a full view of what it looks like. Sorry for that. 2 more here and 2 more here. Okay, so just so you know, none of these pieces are set up in any kind of strategic fashion. They're just on the board for display purpose only, and show you what the board looks like and how the setup begins. So I'm going to turn that around. So you just bear with me a second so that you can get a overview of the board. So this is the board. Sorry, trying to get the right angle here. There we are. There, like that. Okay, so there's the board, the Stratego board. You can see the board with the 2 water features in the center and all the pieces. So how the pieces, if you are looking, you can see the red pieces are on one side, the blue pieces on the other side, and you have all of the pieces have their backs to the other opposing player. So if you look closely, you will see that all the red pieces, you cannot see the faces of any of them, you can only see their backs. That's facing the blue board. It's the same with the blue side. And oh yeah, the one more thing I wanted to show you, if you may notice that at the bottom of each board on either side there is a list of the names of each of the pieces and the picture of each of them, so that you cannot be confused while you're looking at your players. If you're looking at your players this way, you will see they match one of these down here. Okay, so the one thing that I did do wrong, and I only just captured it when I'm showing you that last part, is I have the blue pieces should be on the side where you have the blue flag, but actually they both have one of each. Oh, I thought there was one of each. I thought there was only one of each, but there's one blue and one red on each side, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's the setup of the game. Usually we put some kind of a wall. I usually use the box that it comes in in the middle so that the other guy can set up his pieces in privacy, and you can set up your pieces in privacy, so that neither one of them is seeing any kind of a strategy or getting any kind of a hint where the guy might be putting his players. This game generally takes between a half hour and 45 minutes to play. It's a good battle type game that doesn't require a lot of like sophistication. Like chess is much more sophisticated than this and a lot harder to learn, but this game can be learned. I taught my daughter this at 6, and by the time she was 8 she was already pretty close to a master of strategy. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video on the board game called Stratego. I did have the original version of this game, which were square pieces. If you notice that this piece is a round piece with a flat front surface. Well, the original pieces were a little shorter. They weren't castle-like this. They were just up and down, looked more like TIE fighters, which is what I used them for when I was a kid. So generally speaking, I bought this set because I had broken a few of them doing other things with them. And we've had this set now since my daughter was about 6 or 7. The original set I got when I was about 8 or 9. So the game's been in my life for 5 decades now. Great game. I chose it as the first game for me to view here because of the simplicity of it, and still has enough complication here to make it interesting. It's a strategy game. If you like strategy games, this is a great first game to learn. So there you have it. This is the game Stratego. I hope you've enjoyed this. This is the first of my non-rock videos. Comes on what I call Game Day, which is about board games. So next month in July, at the beginning of July, I will do another episode in which I'll choose another game to display. This one took longer than I thought, but I think it's been pretty thorough. It's a game I love quite a bit. Easy game to sit down and play if you have an hour of time. You just want to play a game with somebody. It's a good way to start, especially if the other person has some knowledge of the game already. Makes it fun for both. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and there'll be more of this stuff. Not going to be every week. There's not enough of those games out there, and I only want to do just a bit on this type of subject. It's something I like a lot, but once a month is good, and we'll be doing some other things on some other channels during the course of this month too. So I hope you enjoyed this, and from Prog Monster, this is Murph saying goodbye. Have a good day.